Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Jody Smith. I am a WVU Extension Associate Professor in West Virginia, and I work with the Post-Secondary Success Team. And we have developed a career readiness pilot that began in the fall of 2021. And I am here with my colleagues, Lisa Ingram and Jamie Mullins. They are both assistant professors from WVU Extension and co-creators of the curriculum and the idea for the pilot. And I am going to let Lisa Ingram kick us off with our presentation today. So thank you and welcome everyone.
Thank you, Jody. Thanks everyone for joining us. I know this is a busy time of year for anyone in Extension, so we appreciate you spending some time this afternoon with us. Just a brief overview. This was developed by our post-secondary team at West Virginia University, and it is a career readiness curriculum that is targeting middle school students. One of the things that we believe is unique about this program is that it is hands-on classroom enrichment. It encompasses 9 sessions covering all sorts of career exploration and workforce readiness topics that we're going to share with you today. And our objective is to assure that our youth are going to be prepared for that post-secondary environment that they enter. Do you have the control, Jody, or do I? Okay, so just a little.
I'm sorry, I do, Lisa, but it wasn't advancing. I don't know why
Okay.
I'm having issues, but now it's working.
Okay, you can go ahead and go on. We're going to cover just a real brief background. When we originally started this, of course, we did pursue some literature review, and we're not going to spend a lot of time with that today because we want to delve into the lessons. But a few key pieces. The National Association of Colleges and Employers, or it's normally referred to as NACE, they do a job outlook survey. And both in 2016 and 2018, they reported that the skills the employers were seeking were things like leadership, teamwork, problem solving, written and oral communication, being able to analyze and solve problems. And in 2017, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, their research revealed that many job applicants were lacking in those very basic skills that were needed to succeed in the workplace. So again, they're honing in on a lot of those soft skills versus the technical skills that the students are acquiring in their post-secondary programs. Radhakrishna and Sinaski research from 2005 did an examination of the influences of 4-H alumni experiences on those soft skills, things like leadership, personal development, communication skills. They found that those 4-H alumni perceived that their 4-H experiences significantly influenced the development of their group interaction, their leadership, and their decision-making skills. Our research team then sought out to investigate that a little bit further. We posed 2 questions. Does participation in 4-H activities have an impact on the development of 21st century skills, on workforce readiness skills, and at what level do youth need to be involved in 4-H in order to develop those skills? So we did a survey with really a convenient sample of our 18 to 25-year-old alumni students, asking them the various roles that they took part in 4-H. So that could be things such as state camps, national events, just county club programming, livestock programming. And that research also rolled out and agreed with that former survey in that they were seeing development of those soft skills that have been identified as keys by employers to have developed those while they were in our program. So we did have a little bit of a research basis. Further, our institution, we've recently had a lot of research done through WVU with stakeholders and just identifying where we compared with the United States. So these were 3 educational parameters I pulled from that data. And college going rates in West Virginia are about 53%, and that's about 16% under the national average of 69%. Our population with high school degrees or higher by age 25 or older are pretty comparable. They're at 87 and 88%. And then when we start looking at those that have obtained a bachelor's degree or higher at the 25-year mark, we're at 21% in West Virginia compared to 32% in the United States. So when we started to look and see what are people doing in preparation, what are college going rates, what are their success rates for completing things like a bachelor's degree, we see that there's definitely a need really nationwide for some improvement in some of these numbers. And we definitely saw back up to the fact that we in West Virginia needed to perhaps get engaged and promote things on the post-secondary front with college going rates. And then our final piece was an assessment of West Virginia public issues, perceptions of key decision makers. This survey and research was initiated by our dean, who is joining us today. So hi, Dr. Atiles. At West Virginia University, we've identified 5 pillars. Those are going to be things like education, prosperity, individual and family health, community health and civic engagement, and natural resource management. Our group, of course, decided to focus on the education pillar, and again, really supporting the work that we've done in the past, the research we've done in the past, and where we would like to be going in the future. This data that came out of this survey was amazing. The actual #1 thing that was identified by our stakeholders with ranking #1 over all of the other 58 or 57 additional elements was to improve career readiness among youth ages 14 to 18. So these were community members. They were some of our public leaders. And that is what they're seeing as a key factor in something that is of the utmost importance here in West Virginia. Ranking #5 was increasing youth life skills. And that included things such as resume building, which again is going to be addressed in this program. And the third highest factor in the education pillar was increasing the number of youth enrolling in apprenticeship programs after high school graduation, which again, you're going to see as we go through these lessons, we identify many pathways the youth can pursue post-secondary education. And that does include apprenticeships, technical schools, 2-year, 4-year institutions. Okay, Jody.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you now about the pilot that we started in the fall of 2021. I was given an opportunity at a local middle school to come in and present a program once a week for the entire 9 weeks, every 9 weeks of the school year that would reach all of the 8th graders in that school. The teacher was very interested in life skill development or career development. And I said, well, we already have some lessons developed. Let me get with my team and put something together. And that's what we did. So basically in the fall, I started with 2 classes, 2 9-week classes, and we were able to reach 64 8th grade students. And during the spring of 2022, Marshall County added a class to the number, and we were able to reach total this school year 126 students with this pilot program. And we worked as we went along through the year We used lessons that had been previously developed over the years by this team in West Virginia, and some of them had been published through our national task force, our working group through NAE 4-HYDP. And then we also found gaps in the lessons where we needed to develop lessons. So 3 more lessons have been developed by our team members this year to add to this entire body of work. So the very first, this is a series of lessons. So it's we did this in 9 weeks, and there are 8 lessons. The number 1 lesson, the Seeing Yourself in the Future, is actually a 2-part lesson. So it would take the first 2 days of the program to get through that career exploration piece that focuses on self-discovery. So our 8 lessons are Seeing Yourself in the Future, Envisioning the Future, Unlocking Job Opportunities, Soft Skills are the Key, Watch Your Step in Social Media Platforms, Filling out a Job Application, Writing a Winning Resume, Dress for Success, and Nail That Job Interview. 5 of these lessons, like I said, had been previously published as individual lessons, and 3 have been added to make this a career readiness program. So the first lesson is actually the oldest lesson of all the lessons we've developed, is that career exploration piece, that seeing yourself in the future. This lesson basically has 3 steps. Our goal is to help the youth learn about themselves. We ask them, what are your VIPs, your values, interests, personality, and skills? And we work through these with them in that very first session. We talk about how career exploration is a process of learning about yourself and about careers that match your interests and skills. And then we emphasize that the average person typically changes jobs 6 to 8 times in his or her lifetime. And that's a lot. We also discuss that many people are not happy in their chosen profession, or there's a lot of changing majors in college or being unsure of what someone wants to do post-secondary. So all of this leads to a discussion of the importance of choosing that career path that's right for each individual person. So in this first step, students are asked to do some thinking in this lesson. You know, what do they value? When we define a value as something important to them, and then we move on to asking what interests them, what do they like to do? The personality portion, the P and the VIPs of this lesson, is a process that looks at personality traits that these students feel they possess. And we talk a lot about personality traits, what they are. In this particular class, we referred back to True Colors as an example, but you could use really any type of personality assessment, or just a general discussion of personality traits will work. I will throw in right here that the teacher did feel like that was probably one of the most valuable pieces in the whole lesson was this whole first one, especially when we start looking at personality, how that relates to careers and their interests. And then we ask them, you know, what skills do they have? Are they talented? Are they creative? What are they good at doing? Are they a good writer? Are they good at math? Everyone, we just keep reinforcing that everyone has skills. Everyone has something that they're good at. And the step here also involves discussion about possible careers that will go along with their VIPs. And then we break out into a group activity where groups are given a scenario, some interests that somebody might have, and then they work together as a group to find out what careers would match up with those interests. So for example, one of the scenarios we give them is, you like working with other people and being outside. What are 2 possible careers that you might consider? And some possible answers could be natural resource officer, a landscape architect, a zoologist, a conservationist, a surveyor, a police officer. We just come up with as many ideas as we can for someone with those interests. And then step 2 of this first career exploration part is when we have them start planning their path. During this step, we give them links to resources where they can go online and search and explore possible careers that they feel might be of interest to them, careers that match up with their VIPs, obviously. And one of the sites we always offer, and this one is nationwide, is careeronestop.org. This gives youth information like job outlook, average income, required training, education, and skills needed. And in West Virginia, we're pretty lucky. I would assume every state has something like this, but I know that we do. And one of the sites that we really promote a lot in this program, especially in the beginning, is the College for West Virginia site, cfwv.com. It has a middle school section that allows students to make an account and explore their interests and skills and possible careers. Once the students have explored 3 careers, then we have them report out what they found. We just have them stand up where they're sitting and explain what they found and what experiences they may need. And then at the end of the day, we talk about the skills that they actually were learning during this lesson, skills like communication, decision-making, and critical thinking. We always end this step of the process with some reflection questions and referring back to those skills that the students are learning. And I wanted to add too, careeronestop.org also has a middle school section, which I think is great because we really want these kids to start thinking about their futures at this age. And then the third step to the career exploration is that preparation step, where we find out how can we get experience and skills or learn more about the job or the career path we'd like to pursue. So we talk about informational interviews, how they can sit down with someone and ask questions like, tell me about a typical day on the job, or volunteering. You know, if they want to work with animals, maybe they could volunteer at the animal shelter or the Humane Society. And then we discuss internships being something they can do post-secondary, and then job shadowing, how they could find someone in the field and ask if they can come and spend the day with that person and watch them work. All excellent ways for them to get more information and to get more experience in the field that they're thinking about pursuing. At this point, we ask students to get into groups and talk it out, explore possibilities for ways they can gain knowledge and experience, and then have someone from the group or each student, if you have a small class, can stand up and share what they were able to find. And then again, we reinforce the skills they're learning in this process: communication, leadership, teamwork, decision-making, public speaking. Often youth don't even realize that they're learning important skills that employers want them to possess. So we're always reinforcing. And now Jamie's going to take over.
So envisioning the future, this is what session 3, so the second actual lesson that we are using as part of this full curriculum, looks at. This idea of vision boards was something that probably 5 years ago, I started seeing being utilized in a lot of adult facilitated trainings. And I found myself going, why are we not introducing this to kids at a younger age? That idea of being able to truly develop goals, right? Whether those are personal, professional, family, or community related goals. And being able to develop those, looking at those people who will help them succeed those goals and the skills they might need. So with this lesson, that is our real goal. Let's help kids learn to develop their own personal goals. Let's make those SMART goals. So we want them to be specific. We want them to be measurable. We want them to be attainable, realistic, and timely. And we do this through the use of 2 different techniques. When it comes to visioning boards, traditional vision boards are paper. They might draw on it. They might use stickers. They might use magazines. It's that idea of it being really hands-on artistic. Let's think about what those goals are and what you see as being that end result. Jody, will you go to the next slide? The one thing we have started trying to do with this session is also providing that option for the vision board to be electronic. So if you look at the examples shared there, those were developed on Canva. When we're teaching this session in a classroom, what we find is you don't have a whole lot of time to do all the cutting out, all the gluing, finding what you really want to put on your vision board in a magazine. So through this electronic process, they're practicing those technology skills. They're still getting to be creative and turn their vision board into something that will truly inspire them. So this is our session 3. I think it's a great place to start when we're looking at those early skill development. Go ahead, Jody. And I believe this goes back to Lisa.
It does. Okay, so as I mentioned when we were going through some of the lit review and the research that was out there, I mentioned that some of those skills that the employers were looking for, they tend to be housed more in that soft skill realm versus the technical skills. I was a former teacher in a respiratory care program prior to extension. And I knew that when people were calling me about my students, when they were looking to hire them, one of the statements that they made over and over again is, we can train them in our charting, we can train them in the way we do things in our department. What we can't train them in is how to work as a team, how to get along with others, how to think on their feet and be adaptable. So in essence, what they were telling me is, we want to hire someone that has the soft skills and we can really work with their technical skills on the job. So a few years ago, I got really interested in that soft skill realm and developed this lesson. So again, it is teaching about the importance of the soft skills. Again, when we're teaching this, we do tend to keep reiterating the importance of those soft skills throughout all of these lessons. I think both Jody and I, as we've been holding the pilots, this is something that just keeps coming up. I know when we were talking in my first couple of weeks, as she mentioned, the kids are like, I don't have any skills. I'm only in 7th grade, or I'm only in 8th grade. And one of the things I like to go back to was bringing things up like, do you play any sports? Well, nearly half the room every time would say, oh yeah, I play basketball, I play baseball, I maybe am a member of the track team, or I belong to various school organizations. And when we talk about those things, they don't realize that they're building things like leadership skills. They're learning to work as a team. Perhaps they're learning to communicate with the others. So we utilize those things that they're already active in and start to show them how those are employable skills that they're learning to build, even if they are only in 7th or 8th grade. Also in this lesson, we talk about professionalism. So we just ask things like, what do you think it means to be professional? And really, even in middle school, they're able to relate to things like professional dress, for instance. So they'll say, okay, when I go to the doctor's office, the doctor is dressed professionally. They might have a white coat, or the police officers in a very neat and clean and tidy uniform. So they see those type of things. And then again, we start pulling out more soft skills. Communication is a big one. Also one that the kids tend to be most fearful of when we're starting these lessons. But I know with my group, I saw great improvement in how comfortable they were speaking and working in their groups. So again, this is another both individual and group lesson. The handout on the left side of the screen gives examples of those soft skills that we've talked about. We ask them to start listing, what are some of the skills that I have? What are some of the skills that maybe I need? Or maybe it's just a skill that I need to improve on. And then we ask them to think about what are activities that you could participate in, or things that you could do to improve those soft skills. We talk about workplace etiquette. So again, that goes from anything from talking about not wearing strong colognes and perfumes in a workplace because you don't know what type of allergies that people that you work with may have. And we've talked about, I always laugh because I'd always cringe when someone decides that they're going to bring fish into the office to eat for lunch and they heat it in the microwave, and all day your whole office is either smelling like fish or my other favorite, burnt popcorn. So while those things seem relatively silly, some of those are things that do make for a positive workplace. Again, things like not taking up time at your coworker's desk, just chit-chatting and not getting to work. So again, some of the things that we highlight: communication, time management, teamwork, leadership, decision-making. Those will go back to being worked out through small group scenarios. You can go ahead and go to the next one, Jody, as well as individual, just kind of talking and using whiteboards and putting up highlights of things that you think would be positive workplace behavior. Moving to the next lesson. And again, this is another one that I've gotten a lot of requests for, and it ended up emerging into a lesson that we've integrated into this program. And that is what's your step in social media platforms. I'm sure all of you can relate if you're working with a teen, a middle school group, or sometimes even younger. Social media is integrated now into kids. I'm finding clear down into first and second grade when I go in and do online media safety. These kids have phones, they have games, they have full access from very, very young ages. So this lesson talks about the digital footprint. So what tracks are they leaving online based on where they're interacting? We discuss things such as what are questionable social media posts? What are things that are crossing the line? So we do an activity called the red line activity, in which we ask, is this type of a post over the line? Is it something that's maybe on the line and maybe we need to think about, or is it something that's okay? So we really try to encourage them to keep that positive image on social media, posting things that are positive, posting things you're not afraid for your grandmother or for your parents to see, emphasizing the fact that workplaces, college admissions, scholarship committees are going to be following you and Googling perhaps your name and seeing what appears. So again, talking about ways that they can monitor and make sure their online image stays up to date. So in addition to doing the red line activity, we also do some scenarios that we ask them to kind of pull a card, and it might say something like no school for me today, hashtag term paper not done, hashtag got an extension. So again, not something that is really going to build a professional image or a positive image of their self, versus scored a 32 on my ACT, hashtag nailed it. So again, just kind of showing differences, but this one has really, I think, become more and more important as each year passes. Okay, Jody, I think back to you.
One of the new lessons that we added to the series this year was fill out a job application. With the 8th graders, I didn't spend a lot of time on filling out job applications and resumes, but I felt like they needed an introduction. I feel like once we get to the high school level, they definitely need to dive into this area a lot more. But our goal with 8th graders in middle school was just to introduce them to what a job application is, what needs to be included and emphasized. Not just, and we talk a lot about, you'll fill out applications not just for jobs, but also colleges and scholarships and award applications. So, having that skill and knowing what to include is very important. We talk about online versus printed applications, how to try to answer each question honestly, things like making sure they use a pen if it's a handwritten application, typing is preferable. And also included in this lesson, it is a longer lesson, but I'm not going to spend as much time with it with you all either, because we are talking about middle school, but there are a lot of activities on this lesson that include virtual and in-person options, and they're all hands-on. And then again, we reinforce those skills. Students complete an application if time allows. You can have a competitive contest, have someone outside the classroom judge the top 3 applicants or the top 5. And then just that would lead to an overall discussion on improving the application and common mistakes that are made. Same thing again with the resume. We don't spend a lot of time on it in middle school, but there's plenty of information in the lesson that could be it could be a full longer session or two with a high school group. Talk about how the average employer only spends 6 seconds looking at a resume. So you want to make sure a good resume tells a story and shares experience, education, and skills in a very concise format. We also, think about the fact, we talk about the fact that by the time a person applies for the first job, they should have some sort of knowledge or experience to share and include on an application and resume. Lots of fun hands activities in this one, virtual format and handwritten format included. They get a sample resume. There's things like a 6-second resume challenge where they get to look and determine if a resume is good within 6 seconds, just to kind of drive home that point that it has to be good in that amount of time. And then this lesson also reinforces those skills that they're, again, always learning skills that employers are looking for, those soft skills that Lisa discussed. Our activities always, teach them and encourage communication, teamwork, even leadership. All those are included. Now, Jamie.
So Dress for Success, the name might be a little cliche, but this is one of those lessons that the youth participating really get excited on, engaging from the moment we start. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. It's something you've heard time and time again. Those initial impressions you make are important. And when you walk into a job interview, the first thing they're going to notice is that appearance, that the way you're dressed, the way you carry yourself, that appearance. So in this lesson, the kids get to learn what to wear and what not to wear to a job interview. And they learn what employers are looking for when they interview potential employees. Go ahead, Jody. So if anyone has ever seen a recycled fashion show, could you just throw me some thumbs up in your box? This idea of a recycled fashion show, it is literally, you give the kids a bag of random items. This lesson I always enjoyed because I come from a county office that is very resource limited. My whole community is resource limited. So for me, it was really easy to walk around the courthouse where my office is located and find a pack of paper plates that may not be being used, or a couple rolls of toilet paper, some of those big contractor trash bags. Just really simple items like that. Aluminum foil that's left over from a STEM activity, newspapers, any kind of random item, and you provide those items to the youth participants, and then they get to design their own workforce appropriate outfit. So interview appropriate outfit. We've done this activity in big settings. We've done it in small settings. I love it in a classroom setting as we're using it here with this program. When we've done it with really large groups, so say you were to take a pilot like this into an entire 8th grade classroom, like at a school, not just one classroom, but the entire 8th grade, 80 to 100 kids, right? You take it in, We've, in that setting, actually used this variation where we have half the group designing something that's appropriate and half the group designing something that's not appropriate for an interview. They then get to go up to the front and we literally do a fashion show. So we have whoever they've dressed as the model walking down our created runway. And then we have one person talking about what they're wearing and why it's appropriate for an interview. Go ahead, Jody. I want to share just so you can see kind of the creativity these kids develop. The one girl, I love how they focused on simple accessories. If you're going to use accessories, you see the whole group working together in the other photo. Go on to the next page, Jody. I love the boy, the suspenders to make sure the outfit is staying up. They just really, I don't know if you can tell, the toilet paper wrapped around the young girl's legs there is hosiery. So like thinking pantyhose. It's just really interesting to see the route these kids go. And the thing we all know about experiential learning, that hands-on piece of it, getting to design and experience this, they're going to remember this. This is a lesson they walk out of going, this is what I learned, and are excited to share with others. So this is one, again, I'm passionate about this lesson because of how excited the kids get about it. Go ahead, Jody.
And I'm going to say, after teaching it multiple times over the years, including this year, I did leave it out in my second 9-week session. I made it because of time, I made it a draw an outfit as opposed to creating an outfit. And the kids had already heard about it from the first 9 weeks and were upset with me that we didn't do it. So I was reminded every other 9 weeks that we had to have that activity because it was by far a favorite. The kids absolutely love it. And they really do learn something. I mean, it is fun, it's hands-on, but they do learn a lot. And then the final lesson is nail that job interview. In this lesson, this gives them a chance to put their best foot forward, talk about how an interview should go, give them some sample questions. We have them create a professional pitch, answering that question every interviewer wants to know, why should I hire you? Or tell me about yourself. We talk about how sometimes that's called an elevator pitch because it has to be done in a short amount of time. And, you may have 30 seconds to convince someone to hire you. And in that time, what would you say? So students get that template, they create the pitch, they have an opportunity to practice in front of each other, again, gaining those communication and public speaking skills, also decision-making skills, because they're having to make decisions on what their pitch is going to be. If time permits, we talk about the perfect business handshake and how a firm, confident handshake is important. We line up, we practice confident handshakes, cover the do's and don'ts of job interviews like eye contact, leaving cell phones at home or turning them off, and watching the ums or how many times they say during an interview. And then this year, this was something the teacher really wanted, and it actually worked out really well. We had mock interviews. And we had students actually participate at the end of the 9 weeks. That was their final exam in the class. They had an interview. We brought in outside people or other extension professionals to come in, and each student had a one-on-one interview after they'd had that opportunity to practice with their classmates and had that opportunity to develop those professional pitches and figure out, what an interview might look like. So that was really exciting. And the kids were always really nervous about it, but they always did really well. And it was fun to see the skills that they'd learned by the time they got to that place and the skills that they could remember that they learned throughout the program.
Go ahead, Jody. So we are going to wrap up by talking a little bit about the impact of what we're seeing from this pilot and what our next step plans are as we work toward having it fully ready to share. I want to start by saying that Lisa did an amazing job looking at that background data in the beginning and showing you that large picture nationwide. If you are questioning the value of programs focused on these topics in your community, I want to encourage you to go review the data within your own community. Earlier this spring, Lisa mentioned the stakeholder report. We were provided some community-wide, county-wide data for our individual West Virginia communities. And it included stuff like workforce participation, college going, secondary going rates, post-secondary going rates. And as we said, those numbers for me in my 2 rural communities I serve, those numbers were even lower than what you're seeing at that West Virginia level. These are resources that are needed. And it has started a lot of those conversations with the local schools about what is already being provided in these areas. So that kind of ties down to why we are doing this. We're excited about the specific curriculum because, as we said, it's very different. Traditional workforce education, it's tough, like to take into a youth setting. These are normally topics that they are very quickly bored by or disengaged. They don't understand why it's important. So these lessons, they're fully hands-on and they embrace that focus on experiential learning. And I love that we have chose to pilot this and evaluate it at that middle school, early high school level. A lot of time, if these things are being looked at, it's late in high school. At that point, that already feels too late. A lot of time as kids are entering high school, they're being asked to choose a career field. Like, this is what I want to do, and these are the classes I'm going to take in high school to be prepared for that. If they haven't got to explore the opportunity or options out there, they're going to pick a field that 2 years later they're questioning their interest in. So we want to help them explore that earlier. The other thing about exploring these topics early, I love how it can help combat some of those stereotypes. Those stereotypes of there's certain careers minorities, women may not, or even men may not be traditionally appropriate for. I love that it helps combat those stereotypes and let them really look at their values, their interests early. Go ahead, Jody. So we have been evaluating this pilot as we go. When we first started, Jody said, listen, I've got this opportunity to finally see how all of these pieces can be pulled together into something impactful. We went, how can we evaluate this? And I'll be honest, we started by looking at common measures. And once we realized this is going to be bigger than that for us, we pulled in our evaluation team at WVU. We're blessed with 3 individuals in that area who are always willing to help. And they worked through a logic model with us and helped us find a tool that would really allow us to see whether this is achieving what we want to see these lessons achieve. So based on that data that we've collected so far on the pilots that Jody has completed in Wood County, we are seeing double-digit increases in many areas. You see there, having a professional image on social media, a 23% increase from where they believed they were with the pre-evaluation to that post-evaluation, a 19% increase when looking at how to dress for a job interview. I told you all I get excited about that lesson. Look how high that person is at the end of these sessions. Like, that excites me. An 11% increase in how confident they are in their ability to communicate with interviewers, a 27% increase in their ability to create a resume. Go ahead, Jody. An 18% increase in filling out a job application. So believe they will go to college after high school. As extension professionals, while recruitment may not be our primary area, we do love being able to get people to our universities. So for me to see that increase, I get excited. even if they end up at a small community college, we're getting that post-secondary piece in there for them. A 15% increase in trade schools. This is exciting because many of our communities aren't aware of those trade school options, right? And we know that those trade specific jobs, those skill jobs, there's not a lot of continuity in communities right now. We need people in those skills or with those skills. Go ahead, Jody. Couple other pieces, 20% increase in finding resources to explore post-secondary options. I was a first-generation college student. I was blessed with an amazing mother who helped me every step of the way. In a lot of our communities, we are working with children who do not have that support. So being able to increase their ability to find those resources on their own is a major achievement. 16% increase in students' confidence in connecting career goals with personal interests. Go ahead, Jody. One of the things that really stood out to us was the two lowest levels of self-perceived ratings pre-test were in the areas of communicating with a future coworker and speaking comfortably in front of a group. Public speaking, it's something some of us probably even still struggle with it in certain settings, and we have tons of experience. So the more opportunities we can give them for that, and as you heard, we try to build that into every lesson, right, can really impact their future ability to do so. So you see there's a 33% increase in those areas over that 9 weeks. This piece was fun. So Jody, in her most recent class, had asked me to come over to present the Dress for Success. And we are preparing a, I'm not going to call it a commercial, but a really nice educational video looking at the positive impacts of this program there in Wood County. Think of it as a small news story. Communications is helping. We were able to interview, I want to say 6 of the students who were participating this semester or 9 weeks during that time. And one of the children, one of the teenagers, while they were sitting there being interviewed, it was so funny because Jody picked this person because she knew they would be direct. She knew they would be honest. And you could tell, like, this topic, it's still workforce development. They're like, yeah, the stuff is fun, but I'm not completely sure that it's like something I'm fully interested in right now because I'm in 8th grade. Why do I need to worry about this? And as the student saying this, it's like there's this moment where it clicked in her head. And she said, you know, I hear people all the time talk about the things they wish they'd learned in school. And I feel like this is what they're talking about, these kind of skills. Why didn't I learn these in school? And she finished up by saying, I should really take advantage of this. And it was just that really awesome kind of qualitative moment of this is impactful. Go ahead, Jody. So our future plans. We've been using that evaluation data to really improve what we're doing, but also to assure, as I said, those individual objectives that we say these lessons are going to hit are being hit. We are doing a few small updates right now. And then we hope our next step will be to fully disseminate the program, train the trainers, let people take it and use it. Okay. What we are asking of this group, right? We would like to know if there is interest in helping us pilot this program, not just here in West Virginia. We want to look outside of our boundaries and get some input to see if it's that effective elsewhere. So Jody is going to drop all of our emails in the chat box. And if you are interested in being part of this pilot, please send us an email with your name, your state, and where you think you might pilot this program. We would love to get that additional input. This is part of that publication process. We want to get it piloted. We want to know that what we've provided, we can hand to you all now and get those same results, that same impact. And our ongoing goal is we really want to finally create that web presence with information, links, these lessons available. So that is where we are at. Go ahead, Jody. We're basically at our time, but I do want to give you all an opportunity. If you have any questions, please go ahead, unmute yourself, ask them in the box. I am going to also go ahead and share a Qualtrics link in the message box. And if you would please fill that out for us so we can get some feedback, we would really appreciate that. Thank you all for joining us.
So thank you, Lisa, Jody, and Jamie for your presentation. So are there any questions? Either unmute yourself or drop those in the chat box, and I will maybe ask one, first one. So what sort of time do you spend on each of these lessons? So thinking about how long.
So typically my class time is 45 minutes. Each lesson can be completed in 60 minutes or less. Sometimes it may take a little bit longer. So, we have to tailor it to the time that we have. All of the lessons are created in a way that you can pull particular activities out if you don't have the time to do. For instance, if a lesson has 3 activities or 5 activities, if you don't have time to complete all of them, you can still use, 1 or 2 of the activities in a shorter amount of time.
Awesome. Other questions for the group?
I also dropped some information into the chat. I'm scrolling back trying to see who asked about where the data could be found. So our West Virginia data, of course, was specific to our state, but that did come through our Higher Education Policy Commission in the state, as well as the Department of Ed. And some of this nationwide data came through the Census Bureau. So I did put both of those, but I'm pretty certain that each state, whether it's called exactly the same thing or not, houses that data in virtually the same type of a format. So it was actually very easy to find and really useful. I can say I don't always dig out that data piece, but I think Dean Attiles had to hop off, but he's really been pushing us to use that data as proof of need in development of our programming. And so we've really hit that pretty hard this spring. And it was really amazing for us because we've been struggling with putting this program and trying to grab some momentum with it. And when that data piece came out from those 2 sources, we couldn't have written the data to be any more perfect to support what we have going forward. So I feel like most states are going to be in that situation with this particular topic.
I see a question from Yvette that I'm going to answer, if you don't mind, Lisa.
Oh, go right ahead.
And Lisa may have to provide part of this answer, but for me, it was actually an opportunity that just fell in my lap because the middle school had a period every day. It was a first period and a 7th period. So I had 2 classes a day, or it wasn't every day, but once a week I had 2 classes. The students had the class every day and there was no curriculum and the teacher had to come up with a curriculum. So we just happened to be at a meeting together and I told them the things that we had to offer through extension and I was invited to come in. And then that led to this pilot. And then Lisa recently was able to she had to do a little bit more work to get into the classroom. And now that we're doing it and word's getting out, we've actually been invited to present this to all of our middle school teachers this summer at their professional development day. And we've also had another county who was invited at the end of the school year to come in and work with the high school students for a few days. So I'll let Lisa give you a little more information on how she was able to get in the door.
Yeah, I also, I did need to do a little bit of soliciting to get into the school, but I actually started with this career technical education program in the county, because in West Virginia, within our CTE objectives, career and workforce readiness is one of their objectives of their program. So for us, that was a really easy selling point, because I actually was meeting objectives that the teachers needed to meet anyways. So that set up the 9-week program that I did this spring. But based on that success, I have actually been working with our vocational education director countywide, and we're hoping to get this into one of our other middle schools. And they are actually seeking information from just a few of these specific lessons. Interestingly, Dress for Success, they're having a lot of issues with kids not being appropriately dressed for things such as scholarship interviews and along those lines. So they definitely wanted work there, as well as the social media presence. So I'm going to be doing some single programs. Of course, we like to sell the whole program together, but different schools need different things. And this really has been a passion and something that I really want the opportunity to get out there and present to as many people and places as possible. So I'm welcoming even a one-day session in a classroom as well. And I did notice someone else mentioned their VOTEC and doing interviews for them. We do that as well here with the CTEs. We do their exit interviews here in the county, and they use an industry person to come in and conduct those. So again, not exactly, but very much like the final lesson that we present with the curriculum as a whole.
And Lisa, I just want to finish out you all talking about getting in the schools there by saying there are communities in our state also still working to find those ways into the school. But what I'm seeing be very effective, as Lisa said, is looking at that data. Look at the data for your community. When we had those stakeholders, these were people from the school system, these were business owners within the community, our county commission, people who work within our health services, 4-H leaders, our homemakers, CEOS, whatever additional programs like that you may have in your own states. When they started looking at the data, that was what really stood out to them, was the fact that these skills are needed. Kids aren't getting these skills. So where can we start building them? Any other questions?
Well, just a couple wrap-up things. If you missed it before, this was recorded, so that recording will be available to you. I will send that out via email later this week to everybody that was registered, as well as Lisa, Jamie, and Jody's contact as well, including the evaluation link if you didn't get a chance to click on that before you get off, and the reminder that if you're interested in piloting, to let Jody, Jamie, and Lisa know that you might be interested. So thank you for coming today. Just a reminder, if you haven't signed up, our next ESP webinar will be June 22nd with the title, Okay, Boomer, You Need to Retire, the conversation on ageism in the workplace. So